Year 12s, in video number 37, we looked at the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating, and in video number 38, we looked at the dietary guidelines for Australian adults. But how might these concepts be assessed? Well, the questions that VCA may throw you in regard to the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating and the dietary guidelines for Australian adults are varied. Let's have a look at some of these. You may be given a question where knowledge is simply assumed, and where that knowledge will help your answer construction in a question that is focused primarily on another concept. For example, knowledge of the dietary guidelines for Australians would be beneficial in answering this question from the 2012 VCA exam. It presents a case study and then asks you to select one of the results of the survey outlined above and describe briefly the possible short or long-term consequences of health. If you're lucky, you might get a state or identify question, in which all you have to do is list features. For example, this question, from the 2013 VCA exam, asks for 2 ways in which the dietary guidelines assist in promoting healthy eating. How do you think you would go about this? Because the question is worth only 2 marks, we want to be concise in our response. No examiner wants to decipher a thesis in order to give you a mark or 2. As such, try to make it as easy for them as possible to give you the mark. The examiner's report backs up this sentiment. Here is a sample response from that report. You will note that there are no explanations here, because none are required to obtain full marks. 1-sentence answers suffice, such as, encourage a wide variety of food from the 5 different food groups to obtain adequate nutrition. But you may also get a question that is a little more involved. This one, from the 2012 VCA exam, asks for a comparison between advice from the Heart Foundation, which is provided, and the advice provided by the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating, which is assumed knowledge. The question is worth 4 marks, so 4 points need to be made. On average, students only received 1.3 marks for this question, showing that it's something that most students struggle with, so it's worth taking some time to get this right. Here are some comparisons that could be made. Note that each one simply relates to one of the dot points provided in the question. This is where general knowledge of the guidelines comes in handy. Both encourage eating a variety of foods. Both include the consumption of vegetables, whole grains, fruits, nuts and seeds. The Heart Foundation specifies to choose healthier fats and oils. Comparatively, the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating does not. The Heart Foundation suggests to limit sugary, fatty and salty takeaway meals and snacks. Comparatively, the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating simply has these items pictured in the associated only sometimes and in small amounts section. Both emphasise the importance of drinking water. And other comparisons can also be made. For example, the advice from the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating includes visual information. The suggested proportions of food group consumption, for example, is visually divided onto a plate, whereas the Heart Foundation does not do this. The Australian Guide to Healthy Eating suggests portion sizes, while the Heart Foundation does not. More information on both the Australian Guidelines to Healthy Eating and the Dietary Guidelines for Australian Adults can be found below. Bye for now and happy studying.